Hello friends, this is Larry with Rides Done Right. I'm at S3ctor in McMinnville, Oregon, and this is the Airstrip attack, and I've got what you have to say is the star of this event. When you're looking at anything that's this cool, doing half-mile exotic cars, and you find out that there's somebody out here that's 13 years old ripping up a runway, you got to go find that person, tackle them, bring them in and get an interview, and this is Steven. He's the guy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Steven. So, you started off in go-karts and found out you had a passion at the age of 7 years old. What was that like, getting in a kart the first time and going and playing around with go-karts with kids that I'll bet there were a lot of kids older than you right off the bat?
At first, getting into go-karts, I was actually really scared. But I mean, because I was, as you said before, going against, older kids, so I got intimidated by them. And I got scared, slowing down, speeding up and everything, and every now and then I would bump them, they would bump me. But the more you did it, the more comfortable you got, and now we're at this point in life where I'm really racing cars in real life.
The cool part about it is that you learned a lesson at an early age, and that is that age absolutely means diddly squat. When you're on a racetrack, it's about your abilities and a really strong car. When you put that combination together, you're equal with anybody. There isn't an F1 guy on a track that you can't sit down and be confident that you can go take. And that's been, I bet, real fun for you.
Yep.
So let's talk about your transition from go-karts to cars. What was the car that you got into first when you actually, I think it was 10 years old that you started getting into cars and kind of doing that. So what was that first car?
I believe the first car was the BMW M5, the new F10, 2014 one, I believe.
So you went from go-karts. What were the speeds in the go-karts that you were running? What was, say, a top speed in a go-kart?
Maybe like 20, I would say.
So 20. So we're going to say these are like the equivalent of Briggs & Stratton 3-horse lawnmower engines, and you're out there. I'm just being funny. We know that karts aren't that way, but you're saying 20. So you go from 20 to getting in a car. That M5, I already know, that goes faster than 20. What speeds were you getting with that M5?
Up to 130, 140 even.
That's 130, 140 even, and at that point, he's 10 years old. And my grandson, he has elevated to quad, it's like a quad 80, Yamaha 80, but that's a little different than what you just said. So, you are a notch above that, and one of the things that I have followed, all of us should look him up, by the way. Watch him on everything. He's all over social media, and find out what's behind Steven, because his family has brought him up right. He has good trainers. He has a good head on his shoulders. He makes very good decisions. And if any of that wasn't happening, we'd be having, his family are smart enough to know, let's back up and evaluate what we're doing. Steven knows what he's doing, and he's learning quick. You spend a lot of time in simulators, don't you?
Correct.
So what simulators are you running, and where are you spending a lot of that time?
Mostly spending it at CXC simulations down by LAX. Usually my driver's coach Bryce Miller takes me, and we go and we would battle on and just improve lap times out there.
So do you do the same tracks every time, tracks that maybe you haven't been on or that you have been on, and how do you find that simulation compared to real life?
Usually we do tracks that I'm going to race on in the future in the Blancpain series or just in general. Mainly I race at Laguna Seca on the simulator because I have Formula 1 training later this September, and that's going to be at Laguna Seca. I'll be driving the Benetton F1 car, training with the Canadian team, which is going to be really exciting for me. But mostly we would race at Laguna Seca because that's where I need to get most of my training done.
So he mentions Laguna Seca, which is my favorite track. I got to do, I was a corner worker at MotoGP in 2005, and I got to be right at the bottom of the corkscrew. So I love the track. It's my favorite track in the United States. So you get to do that, and with Benetton, I mean, this is going to be an experience. So give me the dates again. When are you going to do this?
Mostly towards end of September.
Now that has to be really exciting. I'll bet you can't wait for that to start.
Yeah.
So F1, and then do we have something lined up then for next year? Do you have a goal set in mind? Because I know you're doing a lot of training, you're getting a lot of experience in a lot of different stuff right now. Do you have a feel for what you may end up in and maybe get some sponsorship to do this next thing?
Right now we're not sure, but if we do really good in Formula 1 training, then we're going to move on from there. But if I if I'm not ready for Formula One training, we're gonna take it back and stay in the Blancpain series until we're ready for Formula One.
What do you find in the simulator? What do you find is your biggest struggle right now? Because you have, I know that the simulators let you go in and you get to pull in and do the pit things. They have full race stuff. Do you find one thing that you're struggling with, say, corner combinations or pits, or what's the thing you're working on?
Mainly getting used to the tracks, because it's a completely different feeling when you're in a cool room, with headset on and a mask on, rather than wearing a race suit, a real helmet, Hans device, in like 120 degrees. So it's a big difference. I have to get used to the change of it, but mainly I would say the track layouts. That's one thing I have to get used to.
So you are going to do this this at Laguna Seca. Have you been on the Laguna Seca track yet with a car?
No, so far no, but I have seen my team out there along with the Porsche Cup, so I have got some reference points at the track already.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience riding in the workers' truck down the corkscrew every day, and we almost rolled it over. So that corkscrew is there's a little more to it than what you're going to be thinking. So you have fun with your first shot down that, but it will be a blast. Can't wait to see that. How the one question I have really for your age is, how do you work education? Start a school right now, and are you being privately tutored, and do you work that in the middle of everything else you're doing?
Right now, yes, I am being private tutoring to balance out the school and racing, but as always, school comes before racing, and that's what I have to prioritize right now.
That's great. I bet with all the training teachers you have, have you trained with anyone on media? This is we're getting experience here with you here. Every time you can do this, you gain more experience doing it. And one of the things I know is very important as you'll go forward is sponsorships and how you handle yourself and what kind of questions you get. Do you guys have a trainer for that? Have you started any of that media training?
So far, not yet, but I would like to say Jeffrey John Hart, a very good media filmer. He did our documentaries actually, and right now we have part 2 coming out soon. Very excited to see that, but mainly I would say I'm kind of mostly with him all the time for filming, but every now and then I'll pick up a little thing I never knew about filming, and it'll come from him, and then maybe I can use it later in the future.
That's great. We met Jeffrey here, and he was, by the way, very kind to us, understanding that we have different venues, we approach things differently, and he gets the big picture that we're all trying to sync up with each other and help each other move forward in this whole racing industry. And it's good that you've got somebody like that, behind you. There's a lot to learn, but it's going to be real fun. Well, I'm looking forward as a fan to watching you and seeing where things go from here. Before I get out of this, what did you get? You drove that McLaren all day. I saw you all day. You were in the McLaren. You were in the Porsche for a bit. What was the fastest speed you got out here today?
It was in the McLaren trapping 165, I believe. Sadly, we didn't have any rear tires though, so we did have a loss of grip, which might have cost a couple miles an hour. But either way, 165 is still very fast. So we did take first in our category, which I'm very happy about. But I mean, 165 is no joke. In the Porsche, we were getting about 150 maybe 150, 152. I mean, but with the ginormous swing, you can only go so much with it.
One of the things I got to ask is that you and Mom both drive the Porsche today. So I wonder if there's something I know as a kid, I would have that little competitive thing. My mom's in the Porsche. I'm going to make sure I beat her, even if it's by 1 mile an hour, and then I'm going to rip her tonight. So how did that go? What did you do in the Porsche?
I will admit it, I did trap slower. I will admit that. But I was having a really fun time though.
Did you remember to turn the air conditioning off?
I did, don't worry. But I was mainly having fun with the Porsche. I was mainly focusing with trap speed on the McLaren because I did have a good competition out here, the Turbo S. There was a great Turbo S out here trapping low 160s around my time too. So we were going head to head for time today. But I did get him in the end, and that's what I'm happy about.
That's awesome. Well, by the way, the cars look great. We're planning on getting a lot of photos, so make sure you guys take the time to look at the photos of what they brought to the show. It's amazing to see what they have, the crew, how it's put together. We're looking forward to what you guys are going to do in the future. And Stephen, it was great to meet you, and thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time.